Welcome to the Crescive Method. We're your hosts, Scott and Sarah, and today we're going to be speaking to another one of our students. We've got Chrisopher Scholz with us, and he is from Germany. He actually has a pretty interesting background. So he was a geologist. He studied geology in southern Germany, and that study kind of took him all over the world, of Mexico and New Zealand. He worked for an environmental consulting firm, testing soils and plants for pesticides, herbicide, and fertilizer residue. And that kind of raised a lot of questions for him. So he went back to university and doing a lot of studying and research and working in the field. And he started working for another environmental consulting service. This time he was focusing on contaminated and polluted soils and still had those questions. And so he decided he wanted to know more about the living soil component rather than just the inert components of soil. So he found us through a friend and has since started his own company since going through the full training here at Crescive. And his company is called Terradynamix. So now Christopher believes that good farming doesn't begin with more inputs, but with better understanding. And so whether he's at the microscope analyzing compost biology or trying to save trees or improving results for his organic farm clients, his goal stays the same. So make soil vibrant, resilient, and alive. Welcome, Christopher. Thanks so much for coming on the show with us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you having on the show, coming all the way from Germany. We've got some things to talk about here where there's an interesting merging between your backgrounds in geology and things that you've figured out and what we try to teach here at the Crescive Method. So, what classes have Chris?
All of them. He's taken
You've done
all
all
of
of them
them.
now.
Yes,
Okay,
every single
Yeah,
one of them.
that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
And you're now starting a business in Germany, right?
yeah, I did start my business last year, and now slowly it's picking up, and I get more and more clients, which is nice.
Nice.
And yeah, the interest is there. Um, just still need to find more clients, and since also the legal cannabis market opened up a little bit, at least in Germany, it got a little bit more interesting in that sense as well. But organic farmers are also very nice to deal with. And yeah, there's more and more interest in Germany as well. It's starting to slowly pick up the regenerative farming practices as well. And um, hence, actually, we need to also do the soil tests that we are able to do in the US and everything. And at the moment, we're still shipping our samples to the US, but hopefully at one point there will be a lab in Germany or Europe that also can do the mehlich and saturated paste tests to the level that Logan can actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For microscopy, you're doing all of the bioassays in-house, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Learned them with you, Sarah, and
Yep.
I'm still learning, of course, and but I'm getting better, and I'm quite confident in judging like the levels of bacteria, for example, and also get to know more and more about all the little living things in the soil, which is really nice. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing in the fields of organic farmers is not as encouraging as it should be. Like I can see a lot of lifeless soil, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty common here as well. They have practices here that really bloom a lot of bacteria at really high levels, but not much else is going on, and so it ends
Yeah.
up eating up all that nutrition, like we talk about in our
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
cannabis has recently been legal for residents of Germany to cultivate at home, right?
Yes, exactly. We're allowed to have 3 plants per person. So as many adults that are living in a household, as many um, times three you can grow at home. It's not a lot, but we work with what we are allowed to. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at some of the pictures of your learning journey and see if we can pull something for the
Yeah.
audience on on what you got going on here. So, whoops, sorry,
Yeah.
wrong. So, what do you got going on in these first pictures here? Is this your setup or?
That was my setup. Like I think it's like also 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago, maybe. I'm not sure. Like I changed it last year completely. With your advice, we got it working better and better, definitely. Here in those pictures, we can see I was working in a tent and a compartment, like a 4x4 feet compartment and a 2x4 bed. My beds are like 560 liter, which I'm not sure is in gallon, probably 112 gallon or something. I'm not sure. Like quite a lot, definitely. And the smaller bed has 260 liters of volume. Yeah, the smaller one was there in the beginning. I started with this one before switching to living soil. I was working with hydro, I was working in cocoa, I was working in normal substrate. Like I tried nearly everything in my small scale room, but I actually really enjoy doing the living soil thing since I have far less work and um, I think I have far better quality
Yeah.
than what I had before. Yeah, definitely.
And so you
And
start.
maybe you got sorry, maybe you got some more pictures how it then continued the
Yeah.
journey for me. Yeah,
Yeah. Before we leave this picture, I just want to like what you
yeah,
start out is a really natural journey. People want to have staggered flowering spaces so that they can keep a consistent harvest going. And one of my
yeah,
objections to that is it actually makes it more work. So it does spread out the harvest, but you end up getting substantially less flour than if you just commit the entire space and harvest less frequently, which sounds crazy, but pretty much every single situation, I'd be so confident to say every single situation I've convinced somebody to switch to less harvest per year and just fully applying the space. It usually leads to more. So that's what these pictures are here. So we've got the starting of two different chambers on two different light cycles. And then this is the next evolution where you got rid of the chamber in the back. Um, and then the next evolution, or here, I guess, is another different picture. So you've got
mm,
this space opened up. You're still maintaining this one
yeah.
tent, and then ultimately
And in
move
the
more. Sorry.
yeah, and you can see the the flower production is in the open space. It's far uh, like you can't even compare it to the enclosed compartment space. Like I think the airflow makes a huge difference, and the plants I think just don't feel as confined anymore. And I think that's the biggest difference that they can just stretch out and actually grow to their potential.
Mhm.
And yeah, at the moment we see like our cannabis clubs, which can grow legally for their members in Germany. Heaps of them also are using tents, which I think will be something they won't do for too long, actually.
Yeah.
Likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I come from a generation before tents, and then somewhere along the line, tents became available. And now this kind of newer generation almost exclusively seems to run tents. And I can understand from a hobbyist perspective if you want variety or maybe can't tear up a room like we used to, pull up the carpet and, do basically some pretty serious construction. I understand the value
Mm,
of the tents, but it's a significantly more hostile environment. Proportionally, the yields seem to be quite a bit lower in most cases. There are some people that pull some pretty respectable yields out of a tent, but I would argue if they got out of the tent, more. So
mm,
I think the only time I've really seen a tent make a lot of sense is in those situations where no construction is allowed and there's just not enough space. So here you've got a basement, or like a wine, I guess it'd be a wine cellar where you're from,
yeah.
that dedicated to a space, so you can put appropriate airflow. You can still evacuate the space, um,
Yeah,
and actually get a pretty high performance grow room out of this little space. Whereas in the tents, you
yeah,
can't even in there, you know. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's far harder to work in the tents I've seen, and yeah, it's much more fun in the open spaces, and you can see um, how the airflow is going through the room. And I think the airflow is one of the biggest contributions that uh, makes makes a open space so more productive. Actually, like we can see in later pictures, like the production actually exploded when I got out of the small tent as well. Like
mhm.
here you can see my both of my beds, still the same soil, everything's the same. Even one less air exchange that I just don't need anymore. So
Yeah.
it's also more energy efficient actually what I'm doing. And here I think I'm just growing like 3 plants now in the whole room. I had quite a long vegetative stage at that point since I was on holiday in New Zealand for 6 weeks. But what came out of the last grow was actually spectacular, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice picture of, of one of the plants at least. And yeah, uh,
Beautiful.
And so now this is
and
after.
here,
Yeah, is this during your 6 week veg? So this is, I don't want to
yeah,
blaze right over that. Like that's a pretty
Yeah.
wild thing to say in that you're operating
uh,
your grow and you were gone for 6 weeks and it kept operating
yes,
on bloom mats and it had great health. Like that's wild, right? You can't just leave
yeah,
a hive
yeah.
6 weeks. Like,
No, no, like I wouldn't have imagined that it actually would work out. Like I was just having to like those 3 clones in my beds because I was just shooting a video for a local shop here in Germany, and um, I was just thinking like, yeah, let's just leave them in when I'm gone and put the lights up and see where they go. And when I came back, the plants were like 20, 25 centimeters above the lights,
Ooh.
also quite burnt, unfortunately. But um, a week later, they were fine.
yeah,
And here you can see it's still the same 3 plants, and they fill up the whole 2 by 3 meter room, or 2 by 350 or something. I'm not sure not how that's comparing feet, but yeah, it's not too big, but also for 3 plants, it's quite massive.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's 8 by 9 feet. And for 3 plants, that's a lot of plant in there. And you could have never done
Mm.
this, not a chance. So I
No, no,
think solid argument for ditch the tent and just build a grow room, old school style.
definitely, definitely.
We can-
Go old school,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned electrical efficiency. Have you noticed a lower electrical bill by getting rid of the tents and incorporating the air exchange?
Yeah, I definitely have like a at least a small amount that I could save in energy. I have one less filter, and because the lights are just um, like spreading to the other sides of the room and everything, I can dim them down more than I could in a tent, for example. So
Hmm.
they're like in the front there are two Austrian-made LEDs, which are quite nice actually.
Hmm.
We can't get all the LEDs that you guys can get in the US, but those ones I really like and I enjoy working with them.
Nice.
The next run will have like 4 of those ones in there, and the bar LED light will be gone as well. Um, then I'm even saving another third of my electricity bill with changing the last light out there. And
Hmm.
um, yeah, it makes a difference going into the room. I have a far bigger space that I can work with. Hence, I have a bigger yield normally. Like if you wedge a little bit longer, or if you have a bigger plant count, of course, with the same energy, you just can get like a third at least more than what you could in a tent. Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm an efficiency nerd. My favorite thing is figuring out how to save money on electrical bill. That was
Yeah.
the back in the day is, that's why I'm such a big advocate of air exchanges, because if you're not exchanging the air, you're creating hostility, and air conditioners and dehumidifiers are fighting all day long, and that's very expensive. So I always get
Yeah.
a getting a little bit more efficiency out of it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I
mentioned
still would like to screw up my, like, I would like to put up my heat a little bit more in the room. Since it's a cellar, it's a little bit hard to heat it up to the temperatures that I would like to have it. Um, so the heating is actually the most expensive in this whole room at the
hmm,
moment, which, yeah, if I could use a different technique to heat my room, it would be actually really cheap to run, like really cheap,
interesting.
um, for what it produces. Yeah,
Very cool.
definitely.
You mentioned doing other techniques. So it sounds like you did several other hydroponic techniques in the same grow room before you switched to the
Yeah,
lip.
yeah. So I was doing deep water culture and recirculating deep water culture beforehand. I was doing cocoa coir grows as well. I didn't do NFT or anything like that, but with the RDC system, or RDWC system, like it was fun doing it, and I enjoyed it since I'm also a little bit of a nerdy guy that likes to keep things really in check and measure my things and have data on everything. And that's also what kept me away from living soil for quite some time, I have to say, um, since I didn't know how to get the data. And um, so it was fun doing it, but it was also a lot of work. And I wouldn't have time to do that anymore at the moment. Like no chance. Especially um, taking it out of the tents now. If there would be uh, uh, a hydroponic system, like wouldn't be fun anymore. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What would you say
definitely.
quality difference, like the difference in were you growing the same strains then as you are now that you could do a
Mm,
direct comparison?
no, no,
Okay.
unfortunately not. Yeah, so I'm like, because there are so many strains out there. Of course, I have my favorites that I still like coming back to, and I like my old school strains as well. Since I'm also not 20 anymore, unfortunately, but um,
That's how
yeah.
we're lucky.
So, sorry.
I I was just saying that's how it goes. We're lucky to still be here on this planet, yeah. So
Yeah, definitely.
all in general, would you say like what would be the difference in the quality
The
for you?
quality, it's just, uh, yeah, the smell is more, just so more pronounced. The, I think the high is different, tastes different to
Yeah.
me. Like if I smoke it or if I'm having my vaporizer, it um, has a different bud structure, I think. It has more, like sometimes a little bit more earthy tones, like the whole complexity of the smell is much more pronounced, like as if everything is in the product, I think I would describe it. Like, whereas beforehand, it was sometimes a little bit like, we call it in Europe, we call it a Holland tomato, like a tomato from the Netherlands. Because like in the former times, it was quite watery. They
Yes,
didn't taste like anything. They
cardboard.
looked like a tomato, but it
Yeah,
was not a real tomato kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so the same thing, of course, is happening to us growers as well. Like, of course, you can. I'm sure you can grow very well made flour in hydroponics as well, and um, the systems advanced uh, a long way and everything. But I think you can't um, replicate what you can do in living soil. And I have to um, actually honestly say I wasn't convinced about this point at all, since when I came to you guys, I was still having the opinion that you can create the same outcome with hydroponics or with any other system if you use the right technique, if you use the right nutrients, maybe with some bacteria in it or something else. But it like I'm a changed person in that kind of regard. Like I'm still waiting for the science to come out that we have a far higher terpene production and that it's just actually much more nutrient dense. But I'm sure it will come out pretty soon. And I'm 100% certain that it will be positive for living soil. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
agree.
we don't have a lot of data for that for food, but we've got mountains of data for cannabis and all the terpenes
Mm,
and compounds. And statistically speaking, in our entire career, pretty much every single time we've taken someone from hydroponics and put them into our version of living soil, their very first harvest outperforms in potency,
mm,
and oftentimes yield.
yeah.
The terpenes is almost always 30 to 40% higher their first living soil grow. And then depending on several factors is will determine if the yield is higher initially or if it takes some time. But we still
Yeah.
ultimately the chance will also outperform the yields of hydroponics, which I realize is a pretty wild statement and most people get offended, but that's just the mathematical truth. But without doing the data behind it, which is where we get
Yeah.
those results. And so here we've got these are the worksheets that we use in the soil balancing class, and Christopher is handling all his own mineral balancing. So this is what those sheets look like, and you're not going to get the results unless there's some data behind it. You may get it sometimes, but it's definitely not going to be consistent. And I think this is something you may be running to in Germany. It's something we ran into here in the United
Yeah.
States 10 years ago, where it seems that people want to get into living soil and like they have a disdain for the testing and they don't want to do it. But unfortunately, in my experience, it's never consistent. And so there is a substantial advantage to doing some of the data. And what's kind of silly to me is I come from a hydroponics background where we calibrated our pH meter every single time we used it. And it's like, that's like saying, I'm going to do hydroponics, but I don't want to calibrate my meter, or I'm going to do hydroponics and I'm not going to even use a meter. It's like, that shit wouldn't last 2 weeks either.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know why people. Well, I guess I
Some
understand
of the
why.
times it's money. I think they
That's for
perceive
sure.
it to be too expensive. Oh, that
Yeah.
method is too expensive because it
Right.
requires a test that costs money,
Right.
but the return on
Yeah.
investment through the
Hmm.
roof. So
Yeah. Like I'm sure it will be much cheaper to run a grow for 4 months or 3.5 months or whatever you run it, um, and get the results that you can get. Like even in a small 2 by 4 foot tent, I'm sure the test will uh, will be positive in the end for your return investment. Like
Yeah.
since you exactly know what kind of nutrients the plants will get, um, like as with any other grow, like if you're using hydroponics, like your nutrients are always the same, so you will get a consistent result. and so okay, I can actually reach those 600 grams per square meter or whatever
Mm.
that you're used to. And of course, you also can do that in living soil if you have the data and if you can put the same nutrients together for the plant uh, consistently. Like it's just makes total sense. And um, I'm a little bit annoyed that some people don't want to spend the money for the lab tests
Right.
because they might save $100, but will get 20% less yield.
Right.
And yeah, it's a little bit silly. Or they will get a product that is has pests, or a product that doesn't have the terps that they want to, or the top quality they want to have. So it's a little bit. I understand that not everyone has the money and just needs to make it inexpensive, and that's all right. You can definitely do it. But if you want to play with in the top league, I'm sure you just need the data to be able to do that. And that also changed my point of view about living soil, and that you actually can do it properly
Yeah.
because of the data points that we take. Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah. And
definitely.
I've been there as well at some points where it's like there's no extra money for testing, so I understand that. But I think where
Mhm.
the whole regenerative world gets off track is there's still no free lunches, as we say
Yeah.
in the United States. Like you still have to
Mhm.
pay the guy at the bridge, and you either pay crossing once or you pay crossing twice, is the analogy I use. So if you're
Yeah,
not if you're not going to do the required maintenance through mineral testing and mineral mending, you're still going to be paying electric bills and time. And then at the end of the day, you might also be paying with crop loss. You're likely going to be paying with lower yields. You're likely going to be paying with, so at a certain point, you have to put something into the system. And what we found, and you'll likely find this in Germany as well as more years go on, is that the longer you try to cultivate in a soil in a permanent soil without testing, somewhere between 3 and 5 harvests, it will unravel horrendously.
Mhm.
And then now you're talking about repurchasing soil. So I'm not sure how it is where you're at, but in the United Kingdom and in Spain, the soil is quite costly and often difficult to get into your flat. And so, the
Yeah,
cost of going to be substantially more expensive than maintaining it with proper chemistry tests at least 2 to 3 times a year or something. So I think over
yeah,
time, because I ran into this same obstacle early on, 2013, 2014, 2016 started getting a little better, 17, 18 got better and better. There's still people that don't want to test, but the market will mature. And after people throw their soil out a couple times,
yeah,
they just
yeah,
say,
yeah,
"How do I actually make it to a permanent soil?"
yeah,
And it will happen on its own time. But
yeah. Hopefully, hopefully. But I'm sure it will actually. Like
yeah,
there are already people that understand the concept and understand how important it is, and are also willing to pay the price for it, of course. And here in Europe, of course, it's a little bit more expensive than in the US, since we still have to pay for shipping, which is quite expensive. But um, it's still cheaper than, for example, we can do a Melich 3 test in one of the labs in Germany, but it doesn't, I'm not sure why. I have my suspicions, but it doesn't, um, like, they don't have the results that I would like to have. And so I still need to ship it to the US, and it's the same price as shipping it to the lab in Germany. So um, it's unfortunate that you have to ship, but yeah, that's just how it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it will get cheaper, I'm sure as well.
Yeah.
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 One of the things that I appreciate you Germans is how precise you like to go. And this is an image put together that really made my heart sing. And so this is, I really got it. I was like, oh yeah, here we go. This is going to be awesome. So what do you got going on here in this image for those following along? This is awesome.
Well, I wanted to just measure anything that I can measure in my room, so I have more data, so I can actually compare and then um, see the mistakes that I'm doing, or can see where I can improve the room. And so I'm just, for example, measuring my PPFD on the left upper corner, my soil temperature, uh, moisture, pH, um, my leaf and room temperature in the lower left corner. And of course, I also need to have some notes about any deficiencies, or if I have some pests, or if anything else that I can see with my own eyes is happening in the room, that I just can make notes and see what's happening. And then I can compare, okay, why do I see, for example, the pest in the left upper corner of that room? Even if it's small, I still can do it. And for example, I might just have a far too high soil moisture content or something. And it actually helps just to see everything on one sheet of paper, and then to make a decision what actually could be the cause of the problem. And um, yeah, I just, of course, you inspired me to do that, but since I just want to learn more and more about the environment, about everything, how everything plays together,
Mhm.
um, you need to have a good data collection, and also you need to see the data in a way that you can actually compare it to each other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's mostly meaningless, since
Yeah.
for example, most people also can't read a lab result, and um, if you don't have any, what do you call it, like any numbers you can compare it to, then it's just meaningless. And so you need to have everything in a form that you can actually see what's happening, so you can change something. And it's just an exercise for me, but it's a good exercise, and I can also reproduce it in bigger rooms now, and can see what's happening in a grow club, or in, like I'm also doing it for my organic gardeners or farmers, where I just use a drone and take pictures of the field, and I can see different plant growth. I can put my moisture readings in the pictures immediately, and just makes things much more easy. And of course, it's also something I learned in my studies that I did, and in my geology career, just to take data and just to use it properly. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like, it's a fun thing to do. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to do it every time I go there, but I also would like to compare microbiology, for example, and I just would need like 3 weeks off and holidays, and can concentrate on that bloody room again.
Need
What
more time in the
yeah.
day.
have
Yeah.
Yeah.
um have you been able to see any patterns on your indoor after making that two-dimensional map or at your organic farms? Has anything started to reveal itself to you?
On my organic farms, I've seen some things already, like some corners on my organic farms were just um, did have like a lower yielding corner, or you could see that the grass was far more yellow where it was just growing, and the tests are just showing like the nitrogen content much lower than the rest of um, the field. But also I can see that there's like a um, major road, just crossing that bit of the field where it is. So I think it might also be something to do, for example, with salt content. I didn't have a check on that one yet, but I need to see if I've got higher sodium concentration just because of the winter salting we do in Germany here, which I think will be the main contributing factor at that farm, at least. And in my room itself, for the last grow, like I took the data sheet and put in some things, but because I didn't have any bigger deficiencies or pests, I actually couldn't see much of a difference. And even if it was, even the 3 plants were 3 different varieties, I still got a pretty even canopy, and I'm sure you could see far more in those pictures than I do, Scott, but I couldn't see a huge difference in plant health, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd say if this is what the result was, you're doing pretty damn good for what you have available to you in your market. You know, this is like, it's like going back in time
Mm,
for us. You don't have a lot of these fancy developed
mm,
products you have to support this. This is basically like 2011 for us. You know, you're having to really search hard for the different soil amendments. You don't have a lot of access to the high quality premium fertilizers that we do. So the fact that you're still getting those quality of results with what you have available to you in your emerging market, I think you're going to be very successful, is what I would guess. Because isn't this even the crop? Is this the crop that you were gone for 6 weeks, or is this another one?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's the crop that I was gone for 6 weeks. And
that's what I'm saying.
beforehand, I didn't test actually. The
Yeah.
first time I didn't test. And before I switched to flowering, I tested and I had a potassium and a phosphor deficiency. Nitrate was very low as well, I think. So that it got to the results that I am or I got here, I'm quite happy. Yeah, definitely.
These are interesting lights.
Um,
These are the ones that you're going to
yeah,
keep with.
yeah. They are satellites, they are called, and actually, they were in like a American or US cannabis competition or something. They were voted for the best lights in the world,
Oh, wow,
Interesting.
which
Wow,
nice.
is quite funny.
that's
Yeah,
pretty. Yeah, that's very.
and it's a really good company actually. I'm very happy to have them on my side, and they are also bringing an interview with me in the near future. And yeah, I've got 3 new lights from them now, and they
That's
are
all.
good guys, definitely.
The
Yeah,
link. A little shout on that.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Circulate.
Share it for you.
Yeah.
What do people say? So now this is towards the end of the harvest, which it looks like,
yeah.
being 6 weeks and having a potassium and phosphorus deficiency and having plants grow past the lights while you're gone. Like, this looks pretty damn good to me. I think it looks pretty awesome. I mean, that's a pretty gigantic stock there. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
like bigger than a bicycle handle, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, that's,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's
yeah,
really, really massive. Like you can't actually see it in the picture, even there's a cent or 2 cent piece, but
yeah.
it was actually really massive. And all branches were completely filled this time, which was really nice to see. And yeah,
Ohala's good.
Yeah. We were
yeah,
scrolling through your grow log before this, and I did see those pictures of those earlier ones where you had hollow stems. And so, what
yeah.
with hollow stems, and what filled them up, and what was the result that you found?
Mm. Well, as you said, like the calcium bore um, what is it called again in English?
Uh,
The
Bore?
Sorry?
Solubor? What do you guys have? So you're using what bore?
Yeah, we're using like a similar product, but like the amount between calcium and bore that
Oh,
is in the
Oh,
soil, like the variation between those two.
yes.
Um, this grow, I first, um, like for the first time, got the bore up to the levels that I wanted, and
Uh,
that made a huge difference,
yeah.
definitely. And um, yeah, I love seeing if results actually come after you change something in your system because of data points that you collected. And if it works, then just is a clear indication that you're doing something right. And if you have like filled stems, of course, water flow and nutrient availability to the upper parts of the plants are 10 times better. And uh, yeah,
yeah,
makes a huge difference in growth rate and everything.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
So what
very
type
cool.
um being in the soil balancing class, have you noticed any similarities to what you saw in your geology? I know we've had some interesting conversations about heavy metal uptake.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
what
yeah.
have you seen there? That was what you specialized in,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing that I specialized in. And in one of my first classes in soil balancing, actually, you were discussing the TEC, the total exchange capacity, which I was in my old job that I was also consulting for people that wanted to build like a dump thingy, like where you can dump old contaminated earth. They just need to have like a thick mud layer uh, in the lowest part of the dump, so that heavy metals can't leach into the ground through the soil. And one part that just stood out in the soil balancing class was that you told us that heavy metal um, in uptake from the plants is much lower if your TEC is much higher. And I was using TEC to measure how little heavy metals can actually flow into the groundwater, for example. And
Hmm.
so I needed to have like really high TEC levels, like 15, 18 at least, to stop the flow from heavy metals into the lower regions of other soil. And so when you actually also told us, like, yeah, we need to have at least 15 to 18
Yeah.
total exchange capacity so that we can stop plants uptaking heavy metals. That's one point where I was just like, oh, yes,
Yep.
that's
Nice.
like, there's something to the method that I already like and that I know, okay, those guys actually know what they are talking about and not just throwing
Yeah.
some rock dust on beds and thinking it's gonna make a difference. And
Yeah.
so it's just something that showed me, okay, um, it is a method that is based on some scientific principles. And since I believe in science, I know that it works, and um, it's just, yeah, makes total sense to me. And since then, I also read up a lot about the TEC, and it's even much more complicated than what I thought when I was doing my last job. But yeah, it's cool to see that it actually translates from one part of geology into another environmental science, which I would definitely call living soil and environmental science. Yeah,
Nice.
Well,
definitely.
the thing that tripped me out was it's not like we were close. Like we saw the same numbers, which was
Yeah,
crazy,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's
you know. And I'm
very.
not coming from any sort of geology background. It just was experiential. And when California went legal, they had the lowest heavy metals that set the new standard for heavy metal tolerance. So since 2016, we've gotten a master's degree in heavy metal uptake. There's been several projects that were very clear lines in the sand. So the starting soil was an 18 or higher. They didn't maintain mineral amendments. The first 2, 3, 4 harvests had no heavy metal detection issues. They didn't keep up with the mineral recommendations, dropped below 18 down into 15. And there's a few circumstances of where that trigger point happens, but nonetheless, let's just call it they drop from 18 to 15. Now all of a sudden they're having heavy metal uptakes and they can't figure out why. And it's literally has to do with the amount of minerals in the soil. And so what is even happening? Like, is it at the lower levels? There's just, I'm not going to say I understand it. It's just observationally, it's undeniable on the tests. Like,
Yeah,
we have to test the flower,
yeah.
you not.
Like, first of all, maybe your listeners don't know much about the TEC, but it's the total exchange capacity. It has to do with two different things. It has to do with the cations, so calcium, magnesium, sodium, and kalium, plus hydrogen and aluminium, and some other heavy metals that are also positively charged. And your soil also needs to have some things those cations can stick to. So either clay particles or organic matter. Those two things work. Clay particles work very well since they are just stable. And with organic matter, how I understand it, is that if your pH drops and gets lower, like below 6.5, I think, it's not as stable anymore. So those cations go of those organic matters, or can leave those organic matters again if your pH drops too low. And so the major two elements that reduce heavy metal uptake in plants is calcium and magnesium. Like calcium just sticks to those clay particles or organic matter really, really, really tough and doesn't let go. So the heavy metals can't stick on those clay particles, and so the plants can't get those. Or the heavy metals even connect with oxygen, and then you have an oxygenated form or a different form. And so just the plants can't take those heavy metals out of the soil anymore. And with magnesium, it's nearly the same, but magnesium, as I understand it again, just um, makes those heavy metals unsoluble. So they aren't like it's another thing, so that the plants just can't take them out of the soil anymore. So one is sticking to the particles, the other one makes them so they can't move around freely anymore, kind of thing. And yeah, that's how science is kind of crazy, that even with soil balancing, some completely different elements, you can stop the plants from taking up other elements that you actually really don't want to have your plants having them. So yeah, really, really cool to see. Yeah, I love it.
Clean medicine and clean food going
Yeah.
forward in this world, for
Yeah.
sure.
I hope I explained that in a way that some people can understand it.
I think
Hopefully.
fantastic job of explaining complex scientific principles
Yeah.
in your native language. I can't even German, and you just explain complex soil physiology. I think we're good, dude. I think we got it. I think yeah. But
Yeah.
and then one of the hardest things about living soil is compost. And man, you're going all for it. So
Yeah.
this is a really important part of
Mm.
the living
Yeah.
part. And without the
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
compost, so
So in the method that
yeah,
we teach, the soil food web principles, as Dr. Elaine Ingham brings forth or teaches in her school, that's the crux of what we use in this method, in addition to the mineral balancing and the nutritional complement piece. And I know that that's been very difficult for you to find in your local
yeah,
area. So can you speak to that first before we jump into
oh yeah,
your journey here
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
compost?
Of course. Yeah. Like to find a biocomplete compost in Europe is quite difficult. It's not impossible, but to be able to buy it somewhere is very hard, at least. And so, if you don't produce those microbes by yourselves, you can either have some packaged products like mycelium or um, mycorrhiza or some bacteria, and that's kind of it what you can get for the normal grower at least. And in the beginning of my journey, I also was concentrating much more on the nutrient balance, but I've seen that the method is just having those two pillars that it's standing on, like the microbiology and the nutrients, and then of course the fertilizing, of course, as well. But um, those two pillars, I've always seen like as like those competing things that the normal farmers always either totally in one direction or in the other one. But it actually makes total sense to me now that they would work hand in hand, and then you get the results that you want actually. And that's one thing that I also like you guys like your method so much, because you, like, I don't know any other company or any other method that brings those two pillars together and are working as one. And so since I can't get the biocomplete compost in Germany, I just have to make it myself at one point. And so that's why I started this year to actually work on it and make it perfect and create a lot of good compost that people can use to take their growing to a much higher standard, like where I want to get to. Like, I don't want to be stagnant. I know I can produce nice flour, I can produce nice tomatoes, but I want to go somewhere else in my career. And that's why, yeah,
Yeah.
I found two other people that are helping me, and now we are producing one of those bio boxes a week at the moment, at least,
No,
which
you.
is quite good.
Yeah, that is cool.
So
That's awesome. I wanted
yeah,
to talk about how difficult, because part of making biocomplete or biologically complete compost is making sure you start with a inoculum source, an appropriate inoculum source that has all of the organisms we're searching for in order to breed out. And so it's been difficult for you to find them in your environment. And I wanted to touch on this because a lot of people will talk to, well, just go for a walk in your forest and, take the soil from under a healthy plant. And it's like, well, it doesn't always, actually, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes,
yeah,
not always. And in your case, it was difficult. Can you talk about that?
yeah, of course. Like, I actually was like every time I'm on a walk, and I'm on lots of walks, I have to tell you,
Oh,
I have my sample baggie with me, and most of the times I don't have enough sample bags with me.
yeah.
And I also I
Nice.
also don't do like a total bioassay every time for everything, but at least I'll have a look, and
Yep.
I can already scan a little bit and say, okay, I don't need to have another look at this one. And
Right.
90% of the samples are just crap, actually.
Wow.
Even sometimes I think that must be the spot. It's really nice. It's secluded. It has the perfect moisture, at least at the moment. It
Right.
has like some rotting trees, and
Yeah.
yeah, but
Wow.
most of the times it's not the case that it's actually as good as I want to have it. So
Yeah.
I
That's-
just have a couple of spots now, and I'm trying to mix those ones and trying to see the end result of the compost as well. Like
Yeah.
I'm just trying different inoculums, and also mixing them together sometimes, so I can have like a bigger variety and different microorganisms. And I think I'm getting there. I'm 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 sure I'm getting there at least. Yeah,
And you're
Well, you're
building and you're
definitely.
boxes a week.
yeah. Yeah. Any names?
Yeah, like I
Wow.
name them. Yeah.
This one.
Well, we have to like for our German market, we have to have numbers at least, or anything that you can actually say, okay, this compost comes from this
That's
production time. And
yep.
so we name them, and so every compost has a different name, and um, yeah, it's quite fun.
Well, and then
Definitely.
human name because it's like
Yeah.
you're growing. I think
Yeah.
it reminds everyone that you're growing something living
Yeah.
here.
That's
So
funny.
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I-
And it's a love child of mine. If
yeah.
it actually works, then I'm very, very happy. And as you can see here,
I'd say it's working.
it's yeah, I think it's working as well. I
Yeah.
hope so. Yeah.
Those are very good.
Some are better than others,
Yeah.
definitely. Like at the moment I have one running that is just extremely hot, and I'm not so sure why it's happening, but let's see how the next one runs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We can talk
But
about
Well,
more.
yeah.
But the
Wow.
recipe changes
Yeah.
are very dramatic sometimes, and even times of year
Mhm.
when you're pulling up biomass in the spring, all of your greens are going to be fresh and they're going to be hot, much
Yeah.
hotter than they would be in the fall.
Yeah.
yeah,
Can
that's what's happening at the moment. Like
yeah.
I'm sure because everything is just growing like crazy here, and 2 months ago or 3 months ago we couldn't find any greens, or nearly we couldn't find any greens, and
Hmm.
now it takes an hour to collect all the greens that we want. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Can
they're going to be full of
is
nitrogen.
this compost available for sale yet, or what are you guys doing with it all?
Not yet,
Yeah.
since the vermicompost phase isn't done yet, of course. But um, I'm I want to bring it to market in like 5 to 6 months. I
Hmm.
still have to do a couple of tests and analyzes, and also have to speak to some more official people. But it looks pretty promising at the moment. Yeah,
Cool.
Awesome.
definitely.
And
That's exciting
that is,
your
man, because
area.
that's the hardest
Mhm.
part. It's the hardest part to do this whole thing is you need the inoculum or it's only so good. Like you said, you can make decent quality with just potting soil, but there's a whole nother level of awesomeness above that if you can get like really good biologically complete compost. So
More than just bacteria
yeah, and
and mycorrhizal spores.
I mean, I just applaud with
Yeah.
how serious you are. I'm really impressed with how, jumping right in, feet first, face first, whatever the analogy you're
Oh,
going for. So I
I
think
think
it's
it's face first. Yeah.
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 What type of consulting services are you offering, and where can people get a hold of you? And how far
So
in all of Europe, or where do you travel to?
yeah,
Yeah.
like I would definitely all part of Europe. Like in January, I've been to a medical cannabis farm in New Zealand that I was visiting. So that was quite nice as well. Um, but like I'm definitely consulting for whole Europe. If they want me to come, I can also come. Otherwise, they of course can also take their own samples and have some phone interviews with me or something like that. But I'm my services are one of course one of those services is like the mineral balancing with the lab analyzers. So they send me the soil sample. I do the whole lab analysis with Logan and sending and customs and all of that stuff, and then calculating what they need, plus also selling them the right amendments for like pre-mixed amendments already for their area that they want to work on, and then as well the microbiology, of course. So me and also your other student Tobias, we are doing the microbiology with the microscope, both of us with the bioassays, and then of course general consulting of living soil as well. Definitely, yeah.
Are you able
And
to?
if
Oh, go ahead.
and if they want to have a fertilizer plan, then I have to work with you guys, of course. That's the thing.
And we'll get you going. I wanted to, for those listening that might be interested in his services in Europe, do you accept, I don't know what the rules are in Europe, but for your microbiology, do you, or any, I guess any of the soils, you're allowed to take countries internationally? Because I know we can't here, but it could just be like an island thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I'm sure I'm not allowed to take it to England. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I can send, like for example, I also can send cannabis samples for microbiological testing to Austria, like another lab that I'm working with as well. So that's another thing that I do. If someone wants some cannabinoid testing or some also heavy metal testing, for example, they can do that with me as well. Then I can send those samples to Austria, and so I'm sure at least the German-speaking countries or the whole Schengen room, like which is like this European trade room. I think we are allowed to send samples to each other, but let's check on that first before we do that.
Yeah, always. It is best to follow the rules. Well, man, I'm really impressed with what you're doing over there, and we look forward to hearing some more from you. We'll definitely have to have you on the show to continue up the updates, and we'll make sure to put all your contact information in the description so that when you're people can get that from you, and if they want to take the living soil, it sure seems like you can handle that for them. So, I mean, I think you're doing pretty damn good. So
it's very inspirational.
Yeah,
We're
man.
so glad to see our students shine like this and launch a career and services in your community. I think the world just needs to move in a different direction, and we need tools and knowledge in order to do that. And I'm just thrilled that you and your the other student you're working with, Tobias, are doing that and facilitating that in Germany. That's amazing. So great.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very happy to be part of the change and not just looking and hoping that something is changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, we'll have to have you back on here in the future and follow up. But for now, thanks for joining us, and thanks for everybody that stuck it out through the interview. We hope you pick something good from this little conversation. We hope to see you in the future.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks for supporting us and here at Crescive, and thanks everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott and Sarah.
Yeah,
You're
man.
welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No problem.